Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing you the Everton versus Crystal Palace player ratings from Monday night at Goodison Park. It wasn't our best performance, was it? We struggled, and I think it shows the sign of the times. We're definitely in a relegation battle now, and to get a point to get us above that dotted line for now is positive, but it wasn't our greatest performance. So why not get straight into it and start with Jordan Pickford in goal? And for me, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. He didn't have a lot to do. He made a good save against Tyreek Mitchell and, a good save against John Philip Mateta in the first half. But for me, his distribution didn't look up to it on Monday night. He looked nervy at times. And I think in a game where you need key passes and key players to unlock you and give you more output going forward, I don't think Jordan Pickford, had his best game in terms of distribution. He looked a little bit off it, and he could do nothing to stop Jordan Ayew's wonder goal. That can be said, but yeah, for me, a 5 out of 10 for Jordan Pickford because his distribution wasn't greatest and he did look nervy at times, and I think that kind of worried the defense as well. So yeah, 5 out of 10 for me. On to Mikalenko. I think Mikalenko had a little bit of a better game than Jordan Pickford. I'll give him a 6 out of 10. He was defensively solid as he always is. I think no one can complain about Mikalenko in terms of defense and how good he is at stopping crosses and things like that. And I think he dealt with Palace's attack quite well. He had a quiet game going forward as he usually does. I think a 6 out of 10 is probably fair for him. That's one of his averages, most average performance. And can he offer a little bit more going forward? I know we've had question marks all season of his attacking output and if he can offer more, but it would have been nice just to see him overlap a little bit more in a game at home. We weren't away from home, and I know Sean Dyche does like to play as the away side when we are at home, but yeah, Mikalenko for me could have offered a little bit more going forward, but defensively sound, so 6 out of 10. On to James Tarkowski. I think he was probably our best defensive player on the pitch. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. I know that's quite positive for the performance that we did put in on Monday, but again, defensively solid. I thought he looked one of our biggest threats from corners, to be fair, and he could have had 2 goals on the score sheet. And for me, in a game where we weren't going to create a lot of chances, we know that Palace would have sat back and you know from corners. I think that was, as we saw in the last 5-10 minutes or so, that was going to be our best chance of scoring. So James Tarkowski offering that aerial threat in the box from those corners, I think we could have had 2 goals on the score sheet, but for a good save from Sam Johnston. So yeah, for me, defensively solid, looked good going forward, and looked a lot calmer than some of the other players that played on the pitch. And his passes were always sharp and accurate. So I think an 8 out of 10 is probably fair for James Tarkowski. I think he was probably our best player on the pitch for the majority. On to Jared Branthwaite. I think he didn't do too much wrong, so I'm going to go give him a 6 out of 10. Maybe he could do better for Crystal Palace's goal, closing down John Philip Mateta before it reaches Jordan Ayew. But for me, Branthwaite has always been solid since he came into the side at Sheffield United away at the start of September. So for me, an average performance for Jared Branthwaite. He didn't do too much wrong, but going forward, maybe could he a bit sharper with his passes into midfield? There's an argument for that, but yeah, for me, Jared Branthwaite a 6 out of 10. Didn't look too bad, but could he do more maybe for Crystal Palace's goal to stop that happening? On to Ben Godfrey. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 as well. Again, I think Ben Godfrey is starting to find some consistency in that side, and for me, I can't really have any complaints over the defense on Monday night. I think they all had a good game, but for me, Ben Godfrey looks like he's finding that consistency since his reintegration into the squad. I think he is a player that massively thrives on confidence and massively thrives on time in the side. So I think, especially with Ben Godfrey, he's one of those players that if he's not on the pitch and he's sat on the bench, he's going to take a while to get up to speed and get onto that pitch, as a lot of defensive players are, and especially if he's playing fullback. So, but yeah, 6 out of 10, defensively solid again, and he showed fantastic athleticism for me. Some runs up the pitch, especially in that second half. A lot of players wouldn't be able to do that, and we know he's such an athlete, Ben Godfrey, with his pressing runs forward and carrying the ball from defence up the pitch. So it was good to see those mad, direct runs that he did in the Ancelotti days. It was nice to see them back. And so, yeah, I'll give him a 6 out of 10. Into midfield now, we're going to go with Idrissa Gana Gueye. I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Don't think it was his best game since returning from the African Cup of Nations. He pressed well, and Some of his link-up play was quite nice with other midfielders such as James Garner and Abdoulaye Doucouré. But yeah, for me, I don't think it was his best game in an Everton shirt. I think he did look a little bit tired, and you know he's getting to that age now where he's not going to be able to play consistently week in week out. And for me, a 5 out of 10 is probably a little bit harsh on him, because he pressed well and some of his link-up play was decent, but I think he's got better standards than that. So for me, a 5 out of 10. Moving on to Abdoulaye Doucouré, and it was nice to see him back in the squad. We know how much Sean Dyche values him as a player in that system, and it was good to see him back. Obviously, not at full sharpness yet, so I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. I think he did okay. As I said there, not fully sharp yet. Offered some nice link up with Dwight McNeil down that left hand side. A few nice passes between them, and I think it was one where Doucouré laid it off for McNeil, and McNeil managed to get the cross into Calvert-Lewin. But I can't really judge Abdoulaye Doucouré fully on that performance. I think he did look a little bit leggy, and as you would, you've been out injured for a month, and you can't really judge a player when they're not up to the full fitness as Abdoulaye Doucouré isn't yet. So I think a 6 out of 10. It was nice to see him back in the side, and he offered some nice link-up play, but the performance wasn't fully there yet, which is to be expected as he has been injured. Moving on to James Garner. I'm going to go 5 out of 10 for James Garner. I don't think it was his best performance in an Everton shirt, to be honest. Looked a little bit leggy for me. Looked a little bit like he'd been burnt out a little bit. And for me, he's one of those players that's been so consistent all season, hasn't he? He's gone about his business quietly, but for me, sometimes his passes were inaccurate on Monday night. I don't think he had, the greatest game going forward. He broke up the play nicely sometimes, and here and there. I think, James Garner's one of these players that goes about his business quietly and puts in tackles, is good at the press, and a bit like Idrissa Gueye, just does the quiet stuff well. But for me, he looked a little bit off the pace on Monday night. So yeah, for me, for not his greatest performance, so I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. I realize I'm sounding really negative here, but I really wasn't impressed with the performance on Monday from the majority of the players. So I think I'm gonna have to go 5 out of 10 for James Garner. Another 5 out of 10 I'm gonna have to go with is Ashley Young. As a winger, I think a 5 out of 10 is fair. I think if he'd have been playing fullback, it would have been a different story because he looked okay defensively. But if you're playing on the wing, especially in a team like ours where we're not going to create a lot of chances, we need a bit of spark off the wing. Ashley Young had to do that for me, and he didn't do it, and it was a poor performance on the wing. He did offer a crucial block off the line, which is why I would have given him a different score if he was playing in defence. But for me, he offered next to nothing going forward, did he? He was really, really poor going forward. And for me, a player like that either has to be playing at fullback or, if we're playing away from home like we did at Manchester City, playing as a defensive winger. So you're just going to sit in with your defence in front of him, and then Ashley Young just shielding that defence as a winger. But for me at home, you can't play Ashley Young as a winger, and that's why I've given him a 5 out of 10. On the other side, Dwight McNeil, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. I think he was a little bit better than Ashley Young. He didn't offer a lot. He offered some energy going forward, which is something Ashley Young didn't really do. You know, his crosses were finding DCL well. I think Calvert-Lewin was unlucky not to get on the score sheet, and Dwight McNeil was finding him quite well with crosses. I think there was 2 or 3 chances which were created by McNeil, which could have been finished off by Calvert-Lewin. So McNeil is putting the ball into the box, which is where Calvert-Lewin wants it, but it's just not really bearing the fruits that we want at the moment. As well, McNeil, good assist for the goal to equalise us. It was a great corner. We've seen Dwight McNeil be so solid from corners over the past 5, 6 months. He pretty much delivered an identical assist for Amadou Onana at Burnley away. So it was nice to see McNeil on the assist list, and I think a 6 out of 10 is probably fair. He'll say it wasn't even his best game. I think a lot of the players will say that it wasn't their best game, and for me, McNeil is probably fair having a 6. Um, Moving on to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm still stuck now. I was debating this in my own head last night when I was preparing this between a 5 or 6. I'm probably going to go for a 5. I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin did enough to warrant a 6. I think, we can't deny Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's very, very good at that aerial ability and holding up the play and winning long balls, which are pumped forward from the defence or Jordan Pickford, and putting in the odd tackle here and there. I think he looked a little bit more like his former self, pressing a little bit more. I think in previous games he hasn't really looked like that. I think against Fulham he barely pressed at all. He was strolling round. But for Calvert-Lewin on Monday night, I think he looked a little bit better at that press and he looked a little bit sharper. But for me, I can't give him more than a five if you're still, 19 games without scoring. I think, yes, he is feeding off scrappy chances and he was unlucky not to score. I think there was a couple of chances where, there were half chances. He got the sight of goal and was just unlucky to head over. But for me, I can't give him more than a five. He looks devoid of all confidence, doesn't he? And, not scoring in 19 games. I think we all, as Everton fans, just wanted to start hitting the back of the net. And I really hope that if he is to start on Saturday against Brighton, he can get that first goal in 19 games and just try and get the goal tally ticking over because he's so crucial to us when he is firing. And I didn't think he had his greatest game on Monday night. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with a five for Calvert-Lewin. I know it might be controversial, and I was stuck between a five or a six, but I'm gonna have to go with a five. Moving on to the substitutes, and for the first time in a long time, we saw substitutes before the 70th minute from Sean Dyche, and the first one of them being Jack Harrison on for Ashley Young on the 66th minute. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. He offered more going forward than Ashley Young did. I think he offered some much needed pace and just energy into that game, which looked flat until the 66th minute. Didn't unlock the game as much as we probably would have wanted to. Jack Harrison's one of these players that you look to and maybe coming off the bench and would be able to, get that killer pass or the assist or even score a goal. But, he probably didn't have his best game off the bench. And I think he was probably unlucky not to start the game in all fairness. But, for me, 6 out of 10, did the quiet stuff well, looked decent in defence, but going forward probably didn't offer us as much as we maybe would have wanted to. Second substitution, also on the 66th minute, was Amadou Onana coming on for Idrissa Gana Gueye. And I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. I think for me, he was our best player on the pitch, probably bar James Tarkowski. He offered that much needed energy, didn't he? That we were crying out for. And, it was a bit unfortunate that he came on and then in quick succession, Crystal Palace got their goal. And I think he was probably a little bit unlucky not to stop the pass for the goal. But yeah, for me, much needed energy. Was always looking up with the ball. Always when he had it at his feet, he was always looking for that next pass. And for me, I think we have a lot of Everton fans, including myself, have failed to see how good Amadou Onana is in recent months because he hasn't really showed that consistency that we want. But he is still young. He is still one of these players that is going to grow in confidence as he grows up as a player. And for me, you're now seeing that in these last two cameos against Manchester City and against Crystal Palace on Monday, he showed that he can really unlock games. And for me, the way he gets the ball to feet and looks to pass it straight away, he's always got his head up when he's got the ball at his feet. So for me, I think Amadou Onana had a pretty good game when he came on. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. And of course, getting the equaliser, great goal again. As I said, pretty much a carbon copy of the one he scored at Burnley just before Christmas. But yeah, I think the tactics didn't help, did they? And he was never going to find that killer pass that would, get us in front. But for me, 8 out of 10, probably our best player on the pitch, bar James Tarkowski, as I said before. And yeah, I think Onana has to start for me on Saturday against Brighton. And the final substitute was Beto for Decore on 72 minutes. I'm gonna give Beto a 5. He didn't really do much, did he? I think, I'm conscious that with 18 minutes to play coming on in the 72nd minute, you're not going to have much time to grow into the game. He offered a little bit of a threat. He was a nuisance to that Palace defence and gave Palace, a little bit of a different dynamic to think about, especially with him and Calvert-Lewin playing up there together. But he never really got into the game, did he really? I think he had one headed effort, which, didn't challenge anything. So for me, it's wasn't his best performance. And yeah, a 5 out of 10 is probably fair. But that is all for the player ratings for Crystal Palace Everton on Monday night under the lights. Wasn't our best performance. We've just got to put that behind us now and head to the Amex on Saturday and have a good performance. But let me know in the comments what you think of my player ratings, if you agree, if you disagree. But that is all. Thanks for watching the Toffee Blues. I'll see you later.